job. And it's also the reason. I think I was naturally observant as a young child because it was that fascination with the diversity of life, in particular plants, as to why I got into science. I wanted to know why they are the way that they are and how we got such amazing and beautiful diversity. And I went into evolutionary biology. But learning to hone our powers of observation is something that we can practice, and we can increase that ability as well. So the mind's eye that she's talking about is really trying to be aware of our powers of observation and trying to utilize our entire set of senses. Smell. Oftentimes we don't think about the sense of smell when we're outside. Or of course, touch. Our eyesight is usually the one we think about the most. Secondly, our hearing. But what's the fifth sense then? Right? Taste. Now, I don't usually recommend people to go tasting every plant they see, but there's actually part of the Key 2019 that requires you to taste things. Now, I personally do not recommend that, but that's in there. So, learning to observe with all our senses is what we're going to practice today. So, what else? What else did you note about this? No other observations? Okay, so let's see.
Talk about like drawing pictures and stuff like that.
Oh yeah, drawing. So I'm going to require you guys to draw today. Even though I really shy away from that because I'm like a terrible drawer. That is going to be part of your assignment. And Sam?
The part about being really specific about the locations where you find things.
Okay. In particular, that's a certain thing that we certainly want to put into our field notes. So we're learning about two different types of observation today, a nature journaling experience and a field note taking experience. And they're kind of metaphysically different in some ways. One is geared towards data. The other one is geared towards experiential feeling. Feeling versus thought in a way. And both of those things are very powerful modes of observing. Right? One is more scientific, but that doesn't make the other one any less powerful. Okay. I really liked this point that he raises, number 4. He says, focus on the process, not the product. So that's in particular something that really differentiates nature journaling from field notes. Taking field notes is very much an objective experience, whereas nature journaling is very much a subjective experience. It is colored by your own individual autobiographical response, right? Use storytelling to paint pictures with your words was one that I thought was really interesting. Write questions to prompt awareness. Okay, so I'm going to go back to this storytelling one. Does anybody here actually like to read novels? I used to read novels all the time, but I quit letting myself. Okay, so when I get the opportunity to read, I usually read fantasy novels, and I have a certain author that I love. Her name is Janie Wertz, and she's written 11 tomes. I call them tomes because they're usually about this thick, of one cycle of a story for fantasy. And I fell in love with her because she is the most descriptive writer I've ever written. I've ever read. I didn't see her, I read her. And her words are so flowery, and a lot of other authors are discouraged from being flowery. But it paints such a vivid picture in my mind that I can literally see this thing happening in movie form as I read, and I love that about her writing. So, being very descriptive, painting pictures with a story or the words that you describe things is a really important part of that process of nature writing. Okay, they suggest drawing maps. Taking inventory of what's happening around you. So in addition to observing maybe an object, we can also observe the entirety of happenstance that's going on. Is it raining? Is it windy? Is there a spider crawling over your knee? And if there is, are you jumping and screaming like I would be? So different things like that. Always looking for patterns. Looking for patterns is, again, one of the things that is really important to observation. and it's probably one of the things that has helped me more in my career as a naturalist and an evolutionary biologist than anything else, because it helps me to see the relationships among plants and other organisms. Okay, so any other comments about nature writing that we want to talk about? Okay, so we're going to start our first activity for the day. And I want you guys to take your nature journal and a pen. And this is a solo experience, okay? I want you to go out and find a place where you're not near other people. So spread out and disperse, okay? And then I want you to write for about 15 minutes. I also want you to draw. You can choose one organism to observe. You can choose the ecosystem to observe. You can choose the bark of a tree to observe. Anything you want. But I want you to write nature journalistically, okay? So we're not talking about field notes, although sometimes that creeps in. But nature journaling for 15 minutes. After 15 minutes, I'm going to blow my whistle. And I'm hoping that you can hear that. And if you don't, maybe you can, when you sit down, set your phone for a timer for 15 minutes, okay? Then we're gonna come back here, and what we're gonna do is we're gonna get a partner. And you're gonna give your notebook to your partner, and take your partner to the general area where you were, and ask them to find the object that you were journaling about, based on your observations and your experience, okay? And then you'll do that for one, and then you'll trade and hurry and do that to another, and that should only take us about 10 minutes. After that, I'll blow my whistle again, we'll come back and we'll talk about the experience, and we'll also talk about field notes, and then we'll replicate that using field notes, okay? All right, so then, 15 minutes, nature journal. If you want to leave your bags here, I'm gonna stay here, and I'll watch your bags.